We're live. We're live. What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Um, we're live. I'm glad to. I'm glad for everybody to be here. I'm very thankful. Just trying to work out a few kinks. Working out a few kinks. There it goes. Okay. Um. So as I said before, I'm very happy and glad to, you know, be able to make it through a new year's 2024, the first day of 2024. Very thankful. Um, I'm thankful for everybody that's, continue to ride with me, through this journey. Um, I'm so excited to be, on YouTube, um, and doing ministry for basically the whole world to see. That means a lot to me. Um So, as you guys see the caption for today, we're talking about new believers, right? New people that are coming to faith. What book of the Bible should we recommend them? So I got a new slogan for those people who are new in the faith. Um, basically I call them the fresh in faith, right? New. They're new people who are coming into the faith. Um, I think this is a very important topic. And I think sometimes we can kind of go astray with this, given books that of course all the books of the Bible are good and profitable, but you want to be very intentional about what a new believer reads. So I think that's important. Now, this is recommendation. So, you know, this is not just, you know, written. This is not like the it has to happen. It has to be this way. But I think it's very important, for a reader to read something that can be very um um helpful to the zeal that they have for Jesus Christ. So the books or the book or the books that I recommend will be the Gospels. Um, why do I think the Gospels are so important? And this is kind of one of the things that I think go hand in hand with this. Um, which is the most important thing to do is introduce Jesus, right? Right. As a new believer, right, they already have this zeal for Jesus and knowing who he is, and well, not fully know who he is. That's why we, of course, we read the scriptures, but I want to get to know this Jesus man. I know that he saved my life. I know that he did this. And this is kind of generational, or not generational, but general, and it kind of goes out to all the believers, right? Um, you're a believer or you're fresh in the faith because you believe in Jesus. Now, the best thing for us to do is introduce them to Jesus, right? And what he's done, right? So I think, as I said before, the most important thing to do is to introduce Jesus, to edify edify Jesus. And I think, what better book to do that than the Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, in the Bible, right? He tell you about Jesus' story, why he came, who he is, um, and what he's done and things like that. So I think that's one of the most important things that we have to convey to a new believer or a person that's fresh in the faith, right? Um, and the second thing, which I think is really important, is, um, as I said, I think what the Gospels do is it kind of values our response to Jesus and what he has done, right? It kind of puts in perspective um, what we should do as new believers, and how we can how we can kind of live out our lives, pleasing to him and stuff like that. Um, and that kind of circles around that word faith, right? Our response to Jesus and what he's done for us, right? So those two things are very important, right? The most important thing to do, of course, we know, is to introduce Jesus. That's one of the most important things that you know um that we as believers do. The Spirit does that, right? And so as we introduce Jesus to this new believer or this person that's fresh in the faith, we're acting in spirit, right? Right. One of the things in I think the Gospels it talks about was what the Spirit was going to do, right? He will reveal all that I've taught you. He will reveal you to me, or he will reveal Jesus to us. So you know, of course, as the Spirit is living in us, we want to do the things that the Spirit, um, gives us the power to do, which is reveal Jesus. That's the most important thing. Um, and as I said before, I think the Gospels gives us a physical representation of discipleship and what it looks like, or how we can kind of um view the perspective of faith or following Jesus, right? And sacrificing our old lives and putting all of the putting all of the things on the back burner and putting Jesus in the front runner. Um Now, um I think that the gospels are more important, or the most important. And I'm a kind of give you a reason why I don't think it's now, of course, the whole Bible reveals Jesus. Don't get me twisted with that. But I think what happens with um the Old Testament, right, is a lot of times the Old Testament can really be confusing to new believers, right? Or someone that's fresh in the faith, right? I think sometimes um uh if you're not really studying it really hard, sometimes you can come to a place where um you don't see the Bible, or you don't see the Old Testament as uh revealing as the Gospels would be about Jesus Christ, right? But in reality, of course, we know that the Gospels, I mean the Old Testament really does reveal Jesus. Of course, we know that. But someone in fresh in the faith, they'll be like, they'll see all this stuff and it's like, okay, cool, or not even cool. Like, what is this? How can we kind of wrap our heads around like this zeal, this understanding that I have about this man who died on the cross for my sins. And, I think, um, as I said before, the Old Testament can kind of get confusing sometimes if it's not wrapped around the context of who Jesus is. Another one, um, New Testament. New Testament. Of course, we know the Gospels in the New Testament. Of course, I know that, but I'm talking about specifically, with the apostles and their writings and what we can kind of get from that. I think sometimes or a lot of times, the New Testament can give, um, as we say, as believers say, Old Testament truths, right? I know for a lot of times for me, reading Romans, reading Corinthians, reading all of these New Testament books, and reading some of these things, and Paul talking about a stumbling block, or calling on the name of the Lord, or you got these different things that we see, um and you'd be like, well, and a lot of times our new Bibles, I have the NLT version, of course. Um, Sometimes our Bibles can reveal to us that, a lot of those New Testament writings are Old Testament truths that are being fulfilled, or allowing us to see what Jesus really, or the, the Old Testament writers were really trying to convey, right? And it can kind of, for those who really love context and, stuff like that, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I want to just read the whole New Testament, or excuse me, the whole Old Testament. I want to read the whole thing, because now Paul said this one thing, and I'm like, I got to take it all the way back, and it can kind of get into that. Now, don't get me wrong. New Testament, Paul's writings, Peter's writings, all of these different writings, they do reveal Jesus. Don't get me wrong with that. That was the most important thing to them, was to reveal Jesus. But I think when we look at the Gospels, we see Jesus writing, or not Jesus writing, but we see Jesus talking, and we can kind of grab or grasp more like understanding, and we get to physically see what he came to do, of course, through the writings and stuff like that. So as I said before, those two things are very important. The most important thing to do, of course, is to introduce Jesus, right? That's the most important thing, right? And then the second thing, of course, we know our response to what Jesus has done, right? Our response is very important. Our response. Okay, Jesus died for us. We learned that in the Gospels. What do we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do after that? Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? Bringing to remembrance all that I've taught you, things like that, right? We get to physically see how we're supposed to follow Jesus. We get to see, of course, and then sometimes even with Jesus's writings, the Gospels, we get to see how some of those Old Testament truths as well in the Gospels revert back to those Old Testament truths, as I said before. But we can wrap our head around that. Of course, these things are about Jesus, right? That's the key part. And our response to it. How do we respond to it? So, two things. Or what the book that I recommend, or the books, are the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. If you guys got any other book that you think that would be really good for a person that's fresh in the faith, put it in the comments. Put it in the comments. Please, you guys follow me. This is my Christian Collections page, my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram. I'll definitely be putting some more content in very, very soon. My name is The Real Kendall on Instagram, Real Kendall _ The Real Kendall _ on Instagram. Just trying to help these people that are fresh in the faith. I know a lot of us are going to be, really, of course, as believers, we're trying to preach the gospel to everybody, right? And so bringing the gospels, as we call the gospels, are just so helpful, revealing this person, this man, Jesus Christ, this man that was fully God, Jesus Christ. So, peace. I love you guys, and thank you guys for tuning in.